Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I am hopped up right now because I have not had very much water and I'm just running on coffee right now, which Marisol made cold brew.
It was crazy. It was a little strong.
Very strong. I put a good amount of creamer. Actually, no, it's like it's majority ice. It's like all ice, mostly coffee, and then a good amount of creamer with a little bit of honey.
I'm surprised it didn't like water it down with the ice.
Yeah, or it's because I think definitely because it wasn't hot coffee.
Yeah.
And so it stayed longer.
True.
But yeah, so honestly we have a lot to cover. First things first, we just got back from Marisol's eyebrow appointment and her eyebrows are popping off right now.
Oh my goodness, guys. It was so fun. The lady was so nice.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just such a good time. Like it wasn't really forced conversation.
Yeah.
And like I said, she was really nice. So it was cool.
Man.
Plus she was closer in like our age. Not like too close, but also not super old. So it was more relaxed.
Yeah, I didn't see her. We went to this like salon, and so Marisol got taken to the back room to get those done. And I was in the lobby, and one of the people that worked there had their dog there. Cutest dog ever. He or she, I don't know what gender it was, but they were sitting at my feet eating their treat, just kind of walking around the salon, and it was the cutest thing. I brought my AirPods and I was actually able to read some more of my book, which this is the first time that I've actually genuinely enjoyed a book in a long time. I think the last time I genuinely enjoyed a book was 6th grade, and it was like this guinea pig scientist book. It was about scientists who did experiments on themselves to further like scientific evolution. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty cool. But no, this one, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, y'all need to pick this book up. I am only 80 pages in and it is changing my life right now. Not really. I mean, it's just changing my perspective on a lot of things. And I'm looking back and I was telling Marisol this prior to the recording. I'm really kicking myself in the ass right now because I'm looking back and I'm thinking like there's so many things that I could have done better if I would have picked this book up before. Like there's so many things that it would change, right? And I can't think like that. Like I'm just saying that, but I'm not bummed out about that.
You're just reflecting.
I'm reflecting, right? I like that. I'm reflecting on my past and I'm realizing, what I could have done better. And so now I'm going to implement that and I am going to do better. The whole purpose of today's episode, right? It's going to be a little bit of a relationship reflection, little double R there, right? And we're going to look back
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about what you said, double R. What the heck?
Like restroom? Nah, relationship reflection, babe. Relationship reflection.
I knew what you meant. I was just saying, like, it sounded funny.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be looking at a relationship kind of like from a philosophical standpoint, or a lot of really related to this book and what I've learned, but also just how we've been, what have we been doing for fun, how we think the relationship has been going on both ends, and where we really see ourselves in the future, especially with school coming up. What are we going to do to see each other? Because Marisol, at the time of this recording, she's going to be going back next week. And at the time of the release of this episode,
I think it'll be my first week that I finished.
It'll be the end of her first week. And then it'll be the weekend before I go back to school.
I'm so excited and nervous.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of both. Excited, nervous, not really excited. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think to start off, I want to talk about paradigms, right? This was, I haven't even gotten into the 7 habits that this book is going to be preaching about. These first 80 pages are all just kind of
introduction.
Introduction, right? And the concept of paradigms, right? I'd heard the word before, never understood what it was. And even hearing it in context, I never understood what the word was, right? But now in this book, I've learned about it, and it's shifting my perspective on how I'm seeing everything, on how I'm trying to approach situations. And so for those of you who don't know, a paradigm, right? It's not a behavior, and it's kind of like a mentality. It's how you view things, right? How you see things from your own personal perspective, right? So, for example, uh, a paradigm that Marisabel and I, or a paradigm that I had about a subject that Marisabel and I had covered in previous episodes, right, was religion, right? And how we had differing beliefs. And in a previous episode, one of our first episodes, you could definitely sense my paradigm, my inner reflection, my inner behavior towards the concept of religion, right? Not Christianity to be specific, but just religion, right? And I was very angry at it. Very, I don't know how you would put it. Very,
I kind of think I know the word that you're trying to put.
like, rebellious. I was very rebellious towards it because I didn't, like, I still, as it stands right now, I still don't believe in any religion, right? I'm in this gray area of just kind of finding myself, right? But I had a paradigm shift, right? My paradigm prior that y'all will have listened to or have already listened to in that previous episode was anger towards it, right? And then we kind of go back and reflected on it in a few more episodes, and you could hear a paradigm shift. You could hear my change in perspective on religion because we had talked about it more, and I became more comfortable with it. I became not angry at it, but open to it. And then again, another paradigm shift. My perspective changed even more. I was much more open. I went to church with Marisabel. We went to a life group that was like Bible study. And now I own my own Bible. And despite my beliefs, I'm still going and being very open to it. I'm learning and being very accepting of those who believe in it, those who don't, those who have different beliefs other than Christianity, right? And I mean, I've gone through so many paradigm shifts in these past few months during the summer. And that's kind of the gist of what a paradigm is, to give y'all an example, right? And in relation to our relationship, I think we experience paradigm shifts probably on a daily basis, right? Because when we first got together, and I was talking to Marisabel about this in the car, and I think it's something very important, not only for our relationship, but like other relationships too, is at the beginning of a relationship, the paradigms that you both share are going to be very different than they are a year down the line, right? Marisabel and I are 3 years into our relationship now, right? And it feels like more, but that again is, huge paradigm shifts from the beginning. At the beginning of our relationship, it was what people called the honeymoon phase, right? Which, I mean, I think if you're with the right person, that phase never really ends. You might have little bumps in the road, but it never really ends, right? I think that's a very basic interpretation of the multiple phases that a relationship can go through. I think the better interpretation is paradigms, right? At the beginning of our relationship, we had this paradigm of, oh, I love you. I'm going to be with you forever. Oh, very lovey-dovey. We were kids. We were sophomores in high school. And our perspective on the relationship, I think, while it was long-term in the sense of, oh, I want to be with you forever, I think in reality, it was very short-term, right? Kind of how we were looking at it. Or personally for me, I can't speak for you, but kind of the vibe that I was getting, it was very short-term, right? It was like, oh, what are we going to do tomorrow or next week? Or, oh my gosh, we should do that. But it was just kind of mentioning stuff.
We were thinking ahead, like, oh, we want to be together forever. But we weren't really talking about in between forever, like what we were doing long term. And now we want to like buy a house and get married. And
yeah, I mean, shit, we're already talking about kids, not necessarily having them, but understanding that, okay, that's definitely something that we both want in the future. How can we plan for that so we can be ready which is crazy to think about because both of us aren't even 20 yet. You know?
We're only 19. I just turned 19.
I know, it's crazy. And so that right there is a huge paradigm shift, a huge change in perspective. We weren't just thinking about, oh, we're being together forever. We had a shift in our perspective on the relationship, understanding that, yes, we want to be together till the day that we die. And we understand that. And that's getting married, right? But we want to move in together. We want to have kids. We want to have nice cars. You know, we want to have a pool. We want to be able to go on expensive trips. We want to do all that. And we had a perspective change. We understand that being together forever is an amazing thing, right? But we had to kind of sit down and understand that, you know, there's stuff that we got to do to get to that point. It's not just going to happen, you know, one day. We're not just going to wake up and, oh shit, we got a house. And like, no, that's not going to happen, right? And with those perspective changes also came, you know, more shifts in how we saw things, right? And another thing was religion. We never really talked about it, right? So then when it came up, it became kind of a issue for the two of us, something that really caused a lot of conflict between the two of us. And when I say conflict, I don't mean like we were yelling at each other or anything like that. It was just something
they were very
that we
heated discussions.
It was something that we did not agree on. And you know, with that were multiple paradigm shifts like I explained prior, right? And so I mean, I don't know, there was a lot going on with that. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Like, what is your perspective? What are some shifts that you feel like we've experienced, like from the beginning of our relationship to now?
Well, I think you explained the two main ones that I saw.
Yeah.
I definitely saw us being very lovey-dovey. I know we talked about it before, or at least I think we have, where we would send really long paragraphs to each other every single morning. And it's kind of like they didn't end until one of us stopped. Like, we're really competitive, I think, in that sense.
Yeah.
Of, like, who could show they, like, loved each other more. Yeah. And so we were also very affectionate in public, I think.
Yeah. We were. And that was a shift for sure.
Yeah, because now I don't know. Like, now it's weird for me that we're older.
Yeah, that we're older. It's like 3 years, you know, but.
Okay, well, it is 3 years. Like, I think we changed a lot.
I think people could change in a month's time. People are like, I'm not the same person I was last week. And that can be very true, because you can experience something that could change your life from 1 week to the next. And so that statement can be very valid, you know, and I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah. So, like, obviously I like to hold your hand and hug you, like, in public, but I don't really want to, like, kiss you in public. Like, I'll kiss you on the cheek and stuff. It's just weirder for me now.
Yeah.
Like, my look on that changed.
I agree that, yeah, mine as well. I am still very touchy in public. I'll admit that. But I do understand, right, that public displays of affection can kind of be off-putting to others. Before I didn't realize that. I was like, it doesn't matter, you know, like.
Yeah, we were very focused on each other. We kind of forgot, like, oh, there's other people.
Yeah. No, yeah. And that was another thing that I wanted to get into. I think that's a good segue into it, is understanding dependence, independence, and interdependence, right? In relation to our relationship, right? And so this again was covered in that book that I was talking about previously. And when they explained it, it was that, you know, you're born and you're a child, you're very dependent, right?
Yes.
And then as you get older, you become independent. And a lot of people don't get past that independent stage, right? I mean, some don't even get past the dependent stage. You're always dependent on others for certain things, right? And I mean, it's going to be impossible for some things to change, you know, like you're dependent on a job to pay you, right, by doing the work. But, you know, there's some things that you can control and become very independent in. But then that last one, interdependence, is the one that is probably the hardest thing to achieve, to master. And it's the mastery of being, you know, good at being independent. You're a very strong, independent person, but you can work as a team, and you have that realization that if you work as a strong team, you can get more done than being a strong individual, right? And that I mean, that speaks to a relationship, I think, in a lot of ways. Because at the beginning of our relationship, I think we were extremely dependent on each other. Not in the sense of, oh, I can't live without you. Like, I need you to be here. It's more, we were so dependent on each other, constantly being there for each other, millisecond reactions to a text message. Like, oh shit, she sent it I gotta react. I gotta I gotta send a message as soon as possible, or, all these things. And
you did text back pretty fast. Now that I think about it.
It took a while, and I'm still working on it, for me to realize that our independence is what makes us stronger as a couple, and that's like the thing that I think it was Will Smith or his wife or whatever, that they were talking about. It's not 50-50, right? It's 100-100. If we're both putting in 100, then we're strong. If we're both only putting in 50%, then we're not. If we can't be strong as individuals, how can we be strong as a couple, right? And I mean, it's very true. I went from dreading vacations and stuff of that matter, right? Because I couldn't bear the thought of being away from you for so long, not being able to see you. So now I'm kind of having a shift in perspective. I'm having a paradigm shift to how I see that being independent, going out with my family and not having you there is perfectly fine. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm still going to see you at some point. I still have communication with you through my phone. And it's okay to get out and be my own person. You know what I mean? Because our relationship isn't our identity. We ourselves are our own identity. We're individuals, but, together we're strong. We're a couple. We're happy together. We have these lofty goals that we ourselves want to achieve together. And that is interdependence, right? We are strong as independent individuals. We can do things by ourselves, but we understand that as a couple, together, we can definitely get more done. We can achieve happiness that's much different from individual happiness, which I think it's important to really does that make sense? To distinct the two?
I think it's distinguish
the two? Like, separate the two.
Yes.
I'll say that. It's important to separate the two, right? Or your individual happiness and the happiness that you feel in that relationship, right? You really have to understand, like, and that's something that I think we're still learning. You got to enjoy the things that you enjoy. You know what I mean? Like, you've been reading and you have your night routine and you do all these things that you yourself do by yourself, right? And like for me, I'll play video games. I've been reading this book, or I'll go ride my bike or go for a run. I do things that I enjoy, and we do things that we ourselves enjoy as individuals. And then when we come together, it's that much better because, we've been doing stuff that we enjoy. We provide happiness to ourselves. We provide self-validation, and it only boosts the relationship more.
Yeah, I will say we have spent a lot more time by ourselves over the last few months, and I've seen a shift where we're more happier.
Oh, yeah.
I think, and it also shows that we're just stronger in our relationship because we're stronger as individuals. Like you said, like, you can't be a strong couple if you're not strong yourself. Yeah,
I 100% agree. It's true. You have to be individual. I think it's impossible. You can't completely give up your individualism whenever you get into a relationship. I think you'll be miserable.
Yeah, I feel like it might feel suffocating.
Exactly.
But you also can't be so independent to where you're not making time for the other person or putting in an effort when you're out and not with them.
Yeah. And I mean, every relationship is different. If being individual and not really showing affection to each other, whether in public or in private, is your thing, then hey, if it works for y'all, go ahead. But it is important to understand that, y'all are in a relationship. What's the point if y'all aren't spending time together, right?
No, yeah. And I think there's very much different, how do I put that? Like
ways of showing that?
No, yeah. Yeah, there's different ways of showing that. But I mean, like, for different couples, it's a different equation for how much time you spend together and spend alone.
Oh, yeah,
and you have
right.
to find the point where it fits y'all's relationship? Like ours
I like
is
that
different
metaphor. Different
than.
equation. Okay, my bad.
Well, I was trying to think of like a way. I was gonna say like median,
That's
and I was
good.
like, that doesn't make
You need to
sense.
write that down. Write that down. Write that down. Like the SpongeBob episode.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Oh, but yeah, keep going on. Go on.
Dang, I forgot because you mentioned SpongeBob.
My bad. So it was like
I was thinking of that episode.
every relationship has a different equation for how they find out, you know, what's a good time.
Oh
to
yeah,
be
and I
by
think
yourself
like
and with the other person.
yeah, so I think like we kind of know more about where our like fine line fits.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
The amount of time we want to spend together and the amount of time that we have to go and do other things where we might not spend time together at all. So every relationship is different, and you really have to sit down and talk about that. And I think once we talked about that, I think we had a discussion like a few months ago, because that's whenever I started working. I started working like 5 months ago, back in April, right? It's like, what, August now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so whenever that happened, we were used to spending every single day together, every single evening at one of each other's houses, or we would go and do something.
Yeah.
And when that happened, it was like, well, shoot, like, when are we going to see each other? And it was very much a shift.
Yeah.
Because we had to make more time, like, during the day rather than at night, because I would close a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. And it was a change, because usually it was at the beginning of the day was when we'd be doing our own thing, and it would be the entire rest of the day until midnight would just be us hanging out together. I mean, we'd spend like 8-11 hours together
Every single day.
And I think it was a healthy change for us to spend
I think
less
so too.
time together, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, not to sound mean, like, it was just, I think we needed to just have time to ourselves, especially now, in this crucial period of really finding ourselves and going through school. You know, you got to make time for what's important, and our relationship is important. I put our relationship above everything else, right? But sometimes you need to prioritize other things at different times, right? It's situational.
Yeah. And so once I started working, that's when we had that discussion of, well, when are we going to spend time together?
Yeah.
And what are we going to do whenever I get out? Because during like from 4 to 12 or 12:30, you had all this time to yourself, right? Or even like before 4 o'clock. Right?
Yeah.
And then I would just be at work, and I would get home, and it was like, oh, well, what do I do? Because you would go to sleep, right? Which is understandable, because you'd be staying awake the whole time for me to get home to say goodnight.
Yeah.
And so then I started doing my night routine more consistently, and like, my skin hasn't changed that much, but it's just nice to do every single day, because I feel like I'm taking care of myself.
Yeah, it's an investment in yourself. It's something that you do with yourself.
Yeah, and I feel like I really needed that, because like, obviously during the day before I started working, like, I would do other things, but we would work out in the morning.
Yeah.
So I would still see you. And then I'd really only had like maybe 3 hours to myself, and I'd like do chores or something. So it really wasn't me making time for myself. It was just time that I had to fill in between before we would hang out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's super important. Like, and that's another thing. I haven't gotten into this chapter in the book yet, but the title of it is Private Victories and Public Victories, right? Mm-hmm. And what you were talking about right now, doing your skincare routine and making time for yourself, like, that's a private victory. You know, you're doing things in private, stuff that nobody else is seeing, but that's bringing you joy and that's benefiting you in some way, right? And I think a lot of time everybody's focused on those public victories, on that, on social media, you know. That was a shift in our relationship too. I feel like we were posting about each other all the time, and that's all we posted about.
We really were. I'm gonna be honest. I deleted some tweet posts, like pictures.
Yeah, I deleted some and I archived some because, I mean, it's good. It showed that we were really obsessed with each other, and we still are, right? We're madly in love, but it's less of an obsession and more of an understanding that, like, we really love each other. We're gonna be together forever, but you know, we're still our own person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't feel the need to have to show anybody like, oh, we really love each other, because it's really only between us.
Yeah, and I don't know why we were like that. I think we were just so focused on that public display.
I think it was that image, because I know from when we first started dating, people would be like, oh, y'all should run for Cutest Couple. And it was kind of like, once that was in our head, it was like, well, now we have a whole year and a half to be like, this is us being the cutest couple, quote unquote.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. That's because people would comment on it all the time. And prior to that, it was kind of a private thing, right? I never really posted on social media. But as soon as people started to really take notice of it, it almost became an obsession of trying to prove to people that that's what we were.
And so, like, vote for us and all this stuff.
Like, we already knew that for each other, but for some reason, we were trying to prove it to others. And, I mean, it's cool. We won Cutest Couple. It's in the yearbook. And I love that for us, right? But it's something that, in the grand scheme of things, does not matter as much as I think the private feelings that we have towards each other do.
Yeah, and so, like, now we kind of only post, like, oh, like, it's our anniversary or it's each other's birthday.
Yeah, it's very minimal compared to what it was. And, you know, now I post pictures of just myself, which I didn't do. And I'm really trying to individualize my own accounts.
Yeah, because before
it was, and that's your little sister. Her little sister Gabby commented on this. She went to my Instagram and she was like, "Is this your Instagram or is this just like a sissy fan page?" And I was like, "Shit, yeah, you're right, man."
It's
like,
true because I was literally in all the pictures.
The only thing that I posted about.
Yeah, and it would be like, "Oh, a picture of us."
The only person.
The only thing. Okay.
No, yeah. It was definitely a shift for sure. I really appreciated the private relationship that we had, right? I think it's important, and some people definitely find validation in your significant other posting you or tweeting something about you, right? And that's great. I think I wouldn't say it's the most important thing in a relationship to do, but it is definitely a form of validation.
It's very nice. It shows like, oh, they're proud to be in a relationship with you.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't think you should be upset if your partner doesn't do it often, because if the relationship in private is strong, then ultimately that's all that matters. You know, the public will come as, you know, y'all strut through the streets or y'all are at a mall. Like, people will see that y'all are together and y'all are in love. But you really shouldn't care what others think if you yourself and your other person are happy together. And that's what I had to realize. It wasn't about our public image. You know, for a while there, it did become that.
It kind of felt like that.
Yeah,
I think.
And I think that's when a lot of our kind of not arguments, but a lot of those little issues started to sprout up.
Yeah, we'd have like mini little arguments.
Yeah, because they honestly, it was all centered around that public image of us.
Thinking back on it, yeah, because I remember one time I didn't like a picture that you posted of me because I thought I looked bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why did you post that?" And you were like, "What do you mean? You look so cute in it." And I knew that you thought I looked cute, but I didn't feel like I looked cute for other people to see.
Yeah.
So it was like, why are you posting that? Like, I don't want anyone else to see that. Like, we go to school with people that you follow and follow you.
Yeah.
And then he deleted it. And you were really sad about it.
Yeah, it was devastating. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, I felt bad because you deleted it and you wanted to show, like, oh, like, I love you and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I just didn't feel comfortable. And now, like, I still have that problem sometimes.
A little bit, yeah.
But it's mainly when my hair is, like, all messed up or we just finished working out. I'm like, I literally look dead right now.
That's why I think you're the cutest.
Well, thank you. But, I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, like, I don't mind if you post that picture or something. It's certain ones where I'm like, yeah, that's just for you. But, I don't know. Like, I had to realize that it didn't really matter what anyone else thought. And I didn't really focus on what anyone else thought. It was kind of like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And then because I didn't feel comfortable with that, I was like, well, shoot, like, now other people are going to see it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't comfortable with other people seeing it.
Yeah. Man, I didn't even think about that. That's crazy how, like, we got to that conclusion just during this talk, you know?
Yeah, and I didn't really think about it, but I was thinking about it today whenever we were in the car. And and we actually had, like, similar discussions, like how Julian's talking right now.
Yeah, we talk a lot. Like, how we talk on the podcast is kind of how we talk whenever we're just in the car. I'm not even lying. That's kind of the reason.
Yeah, it's mainly in the car, too.
It's why we started this, honestly. We're like, we got a lot of shit to talk about. Let's just talk about it.
But yeah, so.
It's therapeutic.
It is.
Doing this podcast. I love it.
I think it really helps you, honestly.
It does. I have a lot to say, and sometimes I don't got enough time to say it with you.
But yeah, so after that post and, like, other little arguments that we would have, I think that's when we had, like, a big argument.
Oh yeah, there were a few people that it was very small amount of people that knew about that, and obviously everybody who listens to this will kind of understand that at some point something happened, right? But the specifics of that, very few people know about that.
Yeah, and I didn't tell anyone.
Yeah, no, it was, and it's not like I told two close friends, right? But um, the during that, right, there were some who witnessed it, and they were probably like, shit, you know. But it was just like my body language and how I looked, right? I think they could see that something was wrong.
Yeah, so I think that was the point when we were like, we need to focus on our relationship and not really what anyone else thinks.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes that happens, you know.
And that was kind of like a year into our relationship. So up until that point, we had that thought of we need to look like we're a really good couple. We can't have like any arguments. We can't even like really seem off in class.
Yeah, we weren't having the important discussions. We weren't, and that's very important. And that was important for us to understand, was that we needed to have those discussions. We needed to have talks like this, just really just getting down to the nitty gritty, being super vulnerable to each other. And I think that's something that society has really not been a fan of, right? Just the whole social dynamic of, you know, the woman is the one who's emotional and expresses all her feelings in such a dramatic manner, and the man needs to be stoic and can't show any emotion. And, you know, relationships like that, some work, but most don't, you know, because if you're really making the man feel like he can't express his emotions,
like, is that an open relationship? Like, can y'all have discussions that are hard?
And my dad was very much like that, and that's where I got that macho sense of, oh, I can't show emotion, I can't cry, I can't do this and that. And I still have a little bit of a problem with that. Like, to this day, I have not cried at a single funeral I've been to. And I got close. I got the closest I had ever been with my grandpa when he passed away. Closest I'd ever been. But in my head, I was like, man, can't cry. Suck those tears straight back into my eye sockets.
Yeah, I think it was, well, I don't know, like, if you're okay with me talking about it.
What?
Well, I guess you are now.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. Go ahead, say it away.
Okay. Well, it was like, so your grandpa passed away when we got together around that time.
Yeah.
Right? And
yeah,
it wasn't
was like the day after we declared our relationship, he passed away.
Yeah. And so I really didn't see you like become emotional. One, because we weren't hanging out as much, and two, because, well, you were in that mindset, right? And it wasn't really until I think maybe the end of junior year where we were talking about something. We were finally having like harder talks or discussions.
Yeah, it was like 2 years later.
Yeah. Okay, so it was 2 years.
About 2 years, yeah.
Yeah. And what is it? Like, you actually cried about it. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, this entire time he hadn't cried in public, you know, or to like one other person about it. And I was very much in shock.
I cried once. It was the day, so he passed away in the morning. And that night I cried by myself in my room for maybe a couple minutes. And that was it. Didn't cry about it anymore. Right? At the funeral, didn't cry. After the funeral, didn't cry. Months down the line, didn't cry. You know, it wasn't until almost 2 years later that, looking back with you, you know, I finally let out all the emotions. But because it was through you, through your nurturing and love, that I became comfortable showing emotion and understanding that, you know, it's okay to be vulnerable. Especially in a relationship, it's important to be vulnerable.
Yeah, because it's like, if you can't be vulnerable with the one person you're going to spend the rest of your life with, like, when are you ever going to have that chance?
Yeah. And yeah, shit, looking back, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. I didn't cry about that at all. And I mean, now I still don't cry. I don't bawl my eyes out anymore about a lot of things, but I do cry, right? Mm-hmm. I do get emotional. I get choked up. I get teary-eyed. That didn't happen before, you know? But I mean, yeah, it's a paradigm shift. I had a paradigm shift, a perspective change on how I viewed emotion and whether or not a guy can show it. And I truly do believe that if, as a man, if you don't cry, you're less of a man. You know, you need to show that emotion. It's important. Whether you're in a relationship or not, it is very important to understand that it is okay to cry. It's okay to feel certain things. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're human. And harboring all that emotion, it's just going to hurt you. You know, and then you might lash out and do things that you didn't mean to do because you never let out those emotions. And, yeah, so it's been a surreal experience, especially now, man, reminiscing on that. It's crazy. Getting choked up thinking about it. It's bananas. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot of stages, I think, just in 3 years. And I feel like that's why it's felt like we've been together for a longer period of time.
That's good. Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. We've gone through so many stages in our lives, in these past 3 years that, yeah, you're right. That's why it feels like it's been longer because of, you know, how they have that relationship circle, right? With the honeymoon phase and all that. And everybody's like, oh, it takes 10 years to get through the whole cycle. And then it goes, and it's like, I don't think that's what it is. I think they generalized it too much. It really depends on the two people that are in that relationship. But we have definitely shifted through that entire cycle multiple times in this past 3 years.
Yeah. And I want to go back on what you said about the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
I still feel like we're in that sometimes.
I think it never goes away.
Yeah.
I think you're always in the honeymoon phase. And it's like that argument phase or whatever, and I forgot what the other one was. It was like the just kind of like being there with each other, like not really.
Oh yeah, you're kind of like, you might feel stuck sometimes.
Yeah.
Because of it.
Those come and go, right? But it's all about your mentality towards the situation. You're always in the honeymoon phase. It's always there. It's never out of your reach. It's just how you approach the relationship. If you're seeing it as a chore, then of course you're gonna feel trapped, right?
Yeah.
It should be something that y'all both enjoy, that y'all both love doing. The relationship should be something that flourishes, that continuously evolves day by day. And, if it's stagnant, then, y'all need to sit down and have a talk with each other about, why is it stagnant?
Yeah, because we had that talk in quarantine. We were like, we're literally doing the same exact thing every single day. Exactly. And then that's when we started getting coffee. And now it's something that we enjoy doing together.
Exactly. And, it's even that, like, we had to realize, hey, we should probably start doing stuff apart. We don't need to be together every minute of every day. Like, we're our own person at the end of the day. And the relationship is only as strong as the two individuals that, sum up the relationship.
Yeah.
It's 1 + 1 = 2. You know what I mean?
What are these things that you're saying?
Hey,
like the first thing you're like double R or
hey,
something.
double R. 1 + 1 = 2. You mentioned equations. That's why I said that.
Okay.
That's the equation, man. A relationship is consistent of 2 parts, and you can't have
2 with 0.5.
Exactly.
Only 1.1.
Exactly.
Or I said 1.1, 1.5.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man. We got hella philosophical in this episode. I hope y'all are enjoying this. I think I was telling my mom about this recently, how I think it's really great that we sit down and just have talks, casual conversation, but especially with the last few episodes, especially episode 14, I think that's what it was, talking about the big changes, how we're trying to bring more value to the podcast.
Yeah.
I think
it was 14.
Yeah, I think in our casual conversations, there is value brought to the podcast, to the show, right? But there's definitely more that we could talk about. I think if we get, the more open we get, and the more
kind of vulnerable too.
Yeah, vulnerable, the more people will be interested in the show, And it's not like we're just talking about this to get viewers, but
I think it's nice to be able to listen to something and then kind of relate.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, comedic podcasts, stuff that, is funny to listen to, but sometimes during those episodes, they do get vulnerable. They get real serious, and that right there is honestly the part that I remember most. I mean, I was listening to, it's called Two Bears, One Cave, with two comedians, Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer. They're best friends, right? And they have a podcast together. And one of the episodes, it was just Tom Segura, and he had a guest co-host on, right? Because Bert Kreischer was off doing a movie shoot, right? And so whenever one of them is busy, they'll have a guest host on, right? And it was another comedian, and they were talking, having good laughs. And the episode was an hour long. It was about the 47-minute mark. And he's like, Tom, can I be serious with you for a second? He's like, yeah, man, like for sure. And he was talking about, I think it was like his son getting sick, or like, or it was like his surrogate son. Oh. And like his parents, the surrogate son's parents had died or something like that. I don't remember. It was very serious. And I mean, the comedian that was talking about was getting very vulnerable, right? And I mean, during that about 11-minute period of them talking about that, no jokes were cracked. Like no jokes were thrown out. It was just serious conversation. And I was like, damn, like this is like, that speaks to you. You know what I mean? It's great to have laughs, but definitely those vulnerable moments are what I remember most in episodes like that.
Yeah, because it's like life isn't always going to be so happy and full of jokes, kind of like our relationship.
Exactly.
So you have to show the parts where it might get a little hard, because other people are going to go through that. And I know with social media, like you talked about, it's kind of like showing the perfect picture. And even though we're really focused on that, we realize now, like, it's okay to show that we have arguments sometimes. Obviously, we don't like post about them or anything like that, but we talk about them on here, and kind of like, oh, we've gone through hard stages too. It's not just, oh, all lovey-dovey all the time. Like, we have to sit down and have these discussions, and sometimes they have gotten pretty heated, and it's like, well, are you okay? Like, at least we ask that at the end, like, are you okay? And I don't know, I think it's nice that we can actually sit down and talk about that now.
Yeah.
And know that other people are going to listen to that. And it's okay, because we realize now that everyone goes through that in a relationship.
Yeah. It's been eye-opening, and it's been extremely healthy for us to go through these. I think people have a negative perspective on having serious conversations like this in a relationship, viewing it as something that shouldn't be had, when in reality, it's probably the healthiest thing that can happen during a relationship. If it's truly something that y'all want, you are going to have disagreements, and that's okay. And we had to realize that. And once we did, and we started having those hard conversations, the ones that are very awkward for even a couple of 3 years to have, once we had those conversations, it only made us stronger, both as a couple and as individuals. And so, I mean, we're already at the 43-minute mark. I have an appointment here in about 50 minutes. So we'll probably close out the episode here pretty soon. But yeah, thank you guys for listening in. We hope that you guys found a lot of value in this episode. Hope y'all learned something, or just found general entertainment out of it. That's what we hope for every episode. Please do comment, or send us DMs about anything that you think that we should discuss. I mean, even we were watching a YouTube video, or I think it was a TikTok, about another podcast, and they were like reading a story and reacting to it.
Oh yeah, it was about this couple.
Oh yeah,
I remember. And I'm not going to explain it because we only have a few more minutes left. But
yeah, but I think we want to start doing something like that, reading a story on the show, and then kind of
like reacting to it.
Yeah, giving our reaction to it, our thoughts on it. And so, I don't know, there's a lot that we're excited for the future of this show, and we hope you guys are excited as well.
Yeah, so let us know, like, if you would like to hear us react to certain, like, situations or stories.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I know I like listening to those, and I stay on them on TikTok, or like even on YouTube. I listen to them, and they're podcasts, and someone's reading it, and the other person's like, oh my gosh, like, I would have left him right then and there, or something. And I think that would just be really funny to do.
For sure. But is there anything else you want to add, babe, before we close this episode up?
No, not really. I think I'm good.
All right, sounds good. Everybody make sure to follow us on our Instagram, our Twitter, and our Facebook at livewithjmpod. All lowercase, no spaces in between. In all of our social media profiles, you can find the link to all of our shows, our podcast websites, our affiliate links, our email, anything. But yeah, other than that, I think we'll catch you in the next one.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.